All right, so I'm going to show you guys a digital painting walkthrough here just to get used to the tools that you will use for digital painting. A lot of these tools with Photoshop are things that we have used before, so nothing is going to be like super duper new. So it should be pretty much a quick demo, but as always, we're going to start with a Apple to help us just get a blank slate and learn how to use the tools, and then you guys will be able to apply those to your own thing. So when I'm making a digital painting, I just want a blank canvas to start with, so I'm going to click Create New. And then you can pick whatever you want for your canvas. You can come over here and, specify exactly how big you want it to be, or you can pick one of the defaults. Just remember, generally high quality, you want one of those numbers for pixels to be in the thousands. So I find that the web large is a good size. If you click over here to the web sizes, those are usually all pretty good. Just pick something from there and then click create. Okay, so your workspace probably looks something like this. Now, in general, you can always adjust the panels and the things on the side here to be exactly what you want. You can get rid of tabs that you don't need. You can enlarge tabs that you access more frequently. For painting, it's best to arrange your workspace as a painting workspace. So just go to Window, Workspace, and then click Painting. All right, so that'll bring up some more windows for swatches, brushes, so that you can change to different kinds of paintbrushes if you want to. Now, you're definitely going to want your color panel up here so that you can see what colors you're using and change your colors easily. So again, with Window, and you're going to go down and click Color. And then I like that up here at the top panel. That's totally fine. I can choose how I want my colors to look. This is a matter of preference. If you like this square and you can kind of drag here, you could do that. Or if you click these three bars on the right, you can change that to like a color wheel, maybe. So this one is nice. This is actually what I prefer because I can pick the general hue, like green, and then I can adjust the saturation and the brightness separately. And that helps me just kind of, be able to see what I'm doing there. You could pick that, or you could pick RGB, or you could pick CMYK. The difference between those two color schemes is that RGB is the best for web, CMYK is the best for printing. Other than that, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Like I said, I like the color wheel. So I'm going to pick that. You can pick whatever you want. Okay, now I definitely want my layers panel up so that I can see what layer I'm working on. With my layers panel up, my brush panel kind of gets a little crowded, so I'm actually going to move my brushes over here. Okay, and now I'm going to expand this panel here so that I can see all of my brushes and my color and all of my layers all at the same time. So I'm going to click these arrows at the top, click on my brushes to expand that. I don't need my history tab up right now, so I'm going to double click to close that. 1, 2. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of a few of these other ones that I don't need here. So tool presets, don't need that. I'm just going to close that. Clone source, don't need that. Brush settings is okay, history is okay, and then I'm going to bring this panel in. All right, so in order to bring that panel in a little bit, I had to add my brush settings to my brush panel, so it was kind of behind my face here, so you couldn't see that, but I can help you in the classroom if you need help with that. Basically, just kind of reorganize your tabs until it lets you do what you want to do. All right, I think that's how I want everything set up. Oh, I'm going to want to see properties too. That'll be a helpful one. I'm going to add that to my layer panel. All right, so my screen is set up how I want it to be for painting. I can begin my painting. Like I said, we're working with an apple. I could just go ahead and start sketching my apple right now if I wanted to. If you ever want to work from a photograph or something to help you kind of have something to reference, you could do that. Luckily, we have an apple photograph from our Photoshop project, so you can just place embedded that apple photo. Cool. So now I have that to look at to reference if I want to. I can begin my sketching. I'm going to be using my tablet now, so go ahead and get that out if you haven't done that yet. So on my layers, I'm going to add a new layer and call it my sketch. As always, keeping your layers organized is going to be so helpful for you, just in general always. So keeping things separated, that way I can reorganize them if I want to. For your sketch layer, you usually don't want that to show when you're all done, so definitely keep that separate. That way when you're finished and you're exporting your file, you can just, invisible your sketch layer and not have to worry about it. I like my sketches to be like a dark gray color. You can make them whatever you want. I like my opacity to be a little bit lower. That way I can add shadows by overlapping a little bit if I want to. And then I like my size to be pretty small for sketching. And the hardness to actually be 100%, again, for sketching. And I'll explain why that's helpful later. So make sure it's 100% on hardness. All right, so let's sketch my general shape of my apple. All right, I think that's a pretty good start for my apple sketch. Now, to color it in, I'm going to add a new layer, again, keeping everything separate. Okay, and I'm going to drag this layer to be below my sketch layer, just so I can still see my sketch as I'm coloring things in, just to help me out with that. And then what I'm going to do is I want to paint only inside of the area that I have sketched out. There are a few different ways you can choose to do this. If you click your sketch layer, and then I do my lasso select tool. We've used this one in Photoshop before. I could very carefully use my lasso tool to select that outline of that apple that I've made. Okay, and then as I have that selected, switch to my color layer, switch to my brush tool, select an apple color. Now, as I paint, it will only let me paint inside of that selection. So that's a really nice way to kind of control your initial placement of colors, right? Okay, so that was the lasso tool. Another option I could do is the magic wand tool. So this recognizes color and selects all of the similar colors. Again, make sure you're on your sketch layer, so you're actually selecting the sketch. Then make sure your tolerance is at like roughly 100 is usually good, and make sure that contiguous button is clicked. So that means as I'm recognizing the empty space here, I'm not recognizing outside of the apple, only inside of the apple. So click, and it does that tracing for me. Okay, this is me in the future editing my video. I realized I forgot to mention to you why making your sketch layer 100% on hardness was important, and it was for this magic wand tool. With your sketch layer on 100% with the hardness, that magic wand is able to create that selection much closer to those lines that you create instead of those fuzzy edges causing it to be a little bit more inwards. So that is why we had our sketch layer on 100% to help with this step. Now, it's going to be very precise here, and obviously my lines are not very precise. It's recognizing, all of those missed sketches that I did. So all I need to do is take this and just kind of expand it a little bit. So while it's selected, I can go up to here to my select toolbar, and I can modify my selection, and I can expand it. Mine's pretty off, so I'm going to expand it by 30. If yours is closer to your actual sketch, maybe it's less, but you can kind of play with it and figure out what works best for you. So again, I have that all selected. Back to my coloring layer, back to my brush tool. Same basic principle. All right, quick note about your tablets. Not every single one has the capability, but some tablets register how hard you press for your paint color, and that will determine how thick the brushstroke is. Again, not everybody, but I want you guys to test it out just to see if your tablet has that capability. Go ahead and deselect your selection because that's going to not allow you to paint outside of it. You can either deselect by going up to select and clicking deselect, or as it says right there, you can just hit Control D, and that will get rid of your selection. I'm going to use the bracket tools to make my brush a little bit smaller here, and I'm going to see if my pressure affects how thick the line is. So I'm going to push really lightly, and then I'm going to push really heavily. Did not affect it. Up here under your brush settings, there is a little button here that says always use pressure for size. So if I click that, that might turn that setting on for me. So I'm going to press lightly, and now I'm going to press heavily. So that did affect it for mine. So if you want that to be the case, go ahead and click that button. If you don't like it, unclick it. Just decide, what works for you. Maybe you like being able to control that pressure like you're working with an actual pencil. I personally don't like it, so I'm going to turn it off for myself. And then erase everything that I have here. All right, back to my apple. As you know, you can adjust different settings with your brush. You can turn that opacity down, which will make it a little bit see-through, which means you can layer on top to make things darker and darker. You can turn your hardness down to make the edges softer. You can change your size, you can change the colors over here. Those are all things that you can kind of mess with to figure out what you like and to help you kind of blend your colors together. So I'm going to take a look at my apple here. Got a lot of red. I've got some darker shadowy red in the middle. Add that in. Another quick note, there is a panel called swatches. This is super helpful because it will tell you all of those most recent swatches that you've used. So you can go back to those colors that you've used recently if you want to continue using them. I'm actually going to drag this over here to my center so I can see it better. Okay, and then another thing you can do is save swatches to a folder. So you have some folders here already that are already kind of set up for you with some basic colors. I can make myself a new folder by clicking this button. Let's call it my Apple sketch folder. And then if I have that selected, whatever swatch I currently have on right now, which is like this dark red color, I can click this plus here, add that swatch. Let's call it like my Apple shadow or red, or you don't even have to name it if you don't want to. And now that's in that folder. So whatever works for you, but if you're using the same colors over and over and over again, maybe it's helpful to put those all into a folder so they're easy to access. All right, so let me keep on adding in some colors. Okay, so I've got a lot of colors just kind of piecing around in here. If I want to blend them together a little bit easier, I can use my color mixer brush. All right, so this one's really fun. I basically just take that color mixer brush and I work in between these two colors where they are like kind of intersecting. And I can kind of push them around and blend them together. Now, same as other brushes, you can make it bigger. You can make it softer. A setting I want you to pay attention to is this one where it says clean the brush after each stroke. So that means it's not going to remember the color that you were just on. It's going to like basically reset it every time you move to a new area. I like to have that on. It's up to you. Try it with it off and see how you feel about it. But this will just kind of blend all my colors together a little bit. So you can see how those edges are starting to really get kind of more colors in between. It's basically recognizing the two colors that it's touching, creating a color in the middle, and then kind of painting that color around it as well. Another thing you can use is the smudge tool. This does a similar thing where you can kind of take those colors and smudge them around. So I don't know, let's say you have a highlight in the wrong area and you want to move it a little bit, or you kind of want that color to be a little bigger, you can take it and adjust it using the smudge tool. All right, so now I'm got my space kind of filled. I just want to complete the painting, so I'm actually going to deselect, Control D, and now I'm just going to add in colors and use my mixer brush tool to kind of fill in the rest of the space of this apple. Again, always making sure that I am in this layer. Now, quick tip, right? If I finish the apple and I want to work on the stem and the leaf, I can make a new layer for that area so that just in case, right, if I ever want to make the stem and the leaf disappear, I can do that. Or if maybe I have it in the wrong spot and I want to shift the entire layer over, I can do that if I keep it separate. So it's important to, keep track of that kind of stuff. All right, so now I've got my color filled in. I'm pretty much done with my sketch layer. I don't think I need that anymore, so I can just invisible it, and now I have just my painting of my apple that I've been working on here. You can change your brushes. We kind of hinted to that a little bit with this brush panel here. There are lots to choose from. Let's say as you're painting, you want to have more of a texture to your paintbrush. You can absolutely try out some of those other textures. So let's just paint a little bit outside of my apple. So there's a texture I could be painting with. Here's a texture I could be painting with. Maybe I want some of that apple texture and I can kind of use that to blend some colors together. Quick note, as you're picking a brush type, look in that tiny little right-hand corner, whether it's a paintbrush or an eraser, right? So it's going to actually take away. You're not going to be able to paint with it. Or some of these are even smudge tools. So this is a wet blender. So what that's going to do is it's just going to take the colors that are already on the layer. So if I click my apple layer, and it'll smudge them together in a unique way. So it's almost like that mixer brush tool where it takes those colors and it finds like an in-between color. There's one in here that's an impressionist blender, so it will create those kind of like fun brush strokes just by blending those colors together. And you can almost get like that fun impressionist texture just with all that stuff. Okay, I'm gonna undo all that. So let's say I want a little bit of apple texture on top of my apple, and I don't want it to affect the blending and stuff, so I can add a new layer just for texture, put it on top of everything, and I can pick a brush tool here that I think has a neat texture to it. I can make it a little bit see-through so I can still see some of that blending happening underneath. So I've got some color kind of textured on to that, and again, if I don't like it, I can just take it away because I have it in a separate layer. So it's important to keep those things organized. Very last thing, again, with those organized layers, add a new layer, drag it all the way to the bottom, and now this can be my background. So again, great option for not being able to affect the things that you've already put work into. So let's just create a fun background here. There you go. I can add in a background without ever having to worry about my foreground and my sketch. It kind of just keeping things separate. It's so good. So please organize your layers. It will help you out so much in the end. It is so nice. And label them as well. Those labels will help you keep everything organized. So that is all you need to know for this digital painting demonstration. That's all the tools that you need to know. Feel free to experiment with the different textures of brushes. Feel free to experiment with how much opacity you like, how much softness you like, anything of that. And as always, talk to me if you guys need any help.